analysis on some of the stories making waves across Nigeria. And this morning, I'm starting with Vanguard on the paper review. Vanguard is leading with all government payments must be cashless from March. That's coming from NFIU. Says only president can grant a waiver for excess cash withdrawal. Payment for whatever purpose from public treasury affected by new guidelines. Embassies, development partners, others affected. Violators to face money laundering and corruption charges as federal government withdraws 225 billion naira, state 701 billion naira, and local government areas 156 billion naira from 2015 till date. And state governments react. You can see that story on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. And here we have photo stories, one showing Kaduna state and the other Lagos and also Abuja. It says voters are checking for their permanent voters card at the INEC office, Magaji Ward, Kaduna yesterday. Also, the crowd of people collecting their PVCs at INEC, Amak office, area 10, Abuja yesterday. People on queue at INEC office in Alimosho local government to collect their permanent voters card in Ikotun, Lagos yesterday. Now on page 8, why fuel crisis has persisted, NNPCL, NMDPRA explained. Military pension begins payment of allowance to retirees and deceased officers' family. Forex, federal government laments dominance of foreign academic materials in educational institutions. You can see that story on page 8. 18 burned to death in Bauchi auto crash. That can be seen on page 6. Some APC governors, senators working for Atiku, says PDP and PCC. Presidency, Makinde will tell you candidates to vote for. Wike tells Oyo PDP voters. You can see that on page 10. How Obasanjo's seizure of Lagos revenue triggered our brain work. That's coming from Tinubu. Stories above, end crude oil theft by May 29. Buhari others security agencies. EFCC operating outside its powers. That's coming from Agbakoba. Also, NDDC, shame of a nation, says Onoche, a new chairman. Nigeria's trade surplus rises 69% to $11.58 billion. You can see that on page 19. Lastly, on Vanguard, unable to meet a 0.5 million bail, man rots in prison for 10 years. You can see that on page 14 of Vanguard newspaper. Away from there, we'll move to the Punch newspaper. The Punch this morning is leading with 28 governors pile up 5.8 trillion naira debt for incoming government. States debt to rise above 200% of revenue in 2023. That's coming from World Bank. Lagos cannot execute laudable projects without loans. That's according to Commissioner. Makinde starts a second-term campaign, faces multiple battles. Our Lagos policeman, military paid 185,000 naira for newborn. You can see that on pages 18 and 17. Lastly, on the Punch newspaper, federal government gave operators ultimatum to name oil well owners, and that can be seen on page 21 of the Punch newspaper. Now let's move to the Guardian. Guardian this morning is leading with 2023 term inflation, insecurity, fuel subsidy. Expert tells government. One on wrong steps ahead of elections is significant year for Nigeria, says Ajibola. Our electoral outcome will determine economic progress. Inflation, cost of living crisis among major challenges. You can see that on page 4. Our cost of production, import dependence undermine national drug security. That can be seen on pages 6 and 7. And lastly, on the Guardian newspaper, federal government to transfer 613 rehabilitated repentant terrorists to state. That can be seen on page 8 of the Guardian newspaper. Away from there, we move to The Nation. The Nation this morning is leading with presidential poll, G5 keeps PDP supporters in suspense. Makinde to announce preferred candidates. Group protest exclusion of Atiku's name on list. Couple, 6 others arrested for allegedly killing selling woman's body part. You can see that on page 28. Stories above, 22 fuel stations sealed for selling above approved price. Aregbesol's men in Osun, APC campaign team. You can see that's on page 27. Lastly, on Nation newspaper, Labour candidate Obi promises to eradicate poverty. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break for the analysis with our guests. Welcome back. If you are just joining me, this is Today the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damilola Ogunshaki. Joining me this morning to analyze the front pages of the dailies is Dr. Tayo Bartero. He's a journalist and the former head department of Mass Communication, University of Jos. Good morning, Dr. Tai.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Yes, welcome to the new year. Now let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies this morning. The federal government yesterday served a notice to the three tiers of government that all payment from the public treasury beyond the threshold approved for daily cash limits by CBN must be done electronically with effect from March 1st, 2023. What do you think about this?
I think it's a very welcome development and long overdue because just as the NFIU explained, is in keeping with global best practices, especially as relates to the guidelines for the enforcement of mitigation of money laundering, terrorist activities, and proliferation of weapons. So it is long overdue. And apart from that, it's also going to check corruption in governance, because the rate at which government officials withdraw huge sums of money physically, cash from banks, leaves room for abuse, and so it makes monitoring the expenditure of these tiers of government difficult, because they can go and withdraw millions, billions in cash, and nobody will be able to trace it to wherever they are taking it. But with this cashless policy, every transaction will be monitored, and it will be possible to track them. So I think it is a long overdue. What I want to add is that I hope it will not go the way of other policies that we've been seeing in the country, where pronouncements are made but enforcement becomes an issue. I think it will be a patriotic act for the agencies, relevant agencies, to ensure that this policy stands, and it will also introduce a lot of checks into the abuses that we're having. So it is welcome and long overdue. We can only appeal and hope that it will be enforced and not done haphazardly, as we have always seen.
Do you think the other windows should be left open? Because NFIU is saying that they are giving one condition under which public officers might be allowed to withdraw more cash and than is accepted under the law, and that's saying that only presidency could provide such window. What do you think about this?
Yes, there's nothing wrong in that, because sometimes there are exigencies that require certain exceptions. And that is why it's good that it is only the president that can give such a waiver, because we want to think that the president by his office will be very responsible, and we only give such waivers to very important and exigent situations. So it will not be, we hope it will not be subject to abuse, we hope it will not be politicized, because where the presidency begins to give such waivers to political associates and friends, that becomes a problem. But if it is based on what is important and in the interest of the country, then that may not be too wrong. So such waivers might be necessary for exigencies. So I don't think I see anything wrong with that.
All right, talking about the presidency, with Nigeria estimated to be losing about $4 billion annually to oil theft and pipeline vandalism, President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered security agencies to deploy to the Niger Delta region to end the menace before he leaves office on May 29, 2023. Do you think it's possible for the security office to end this?
Well, for me, it is a very funny thing. It is like passing the buck, when it is your responsibility to act and ensure that certain things are done, and then you are pushing it to people. If scapegoats have been made of people who should enforce some of these policies, or ensure that things are done, or some of these ministries are copped, if scapegoats have been made of those who are not efficient, we'll not be talking, we'll not be saying what we are saying. There will be no need to be giving repeated orders to people, giving them deadlines that end up not being met. For me, the president is just passing the buck, because the buck stops on his table as a commander-in-chief to ensure that all these things are put in check. And where it has failed in the last 7 years, and is now just some months away to leaving office and is still giving deadlines, I think it's just playing to the gallery to be seen to be saying something about it. And then let us not also forget the aspect. There are allegations that even the security agencies are involved in some of these things. And so if they have been accused and nothing, no scapegoat has been identified, nobody has been punished, are we not just deceiving ourselves? Can we check? Can a member of the thieving gang resolve the problem when they are benefiting from it? So we need to just change the whole thing, the way we look at things and the way we make things. Unless we address the core issues that give rise to some of these things, then we'll just be deceiving ourselves. People are making a lot of money from the oil theft, and to just think that issue and order without taking very drastic measures to punish people or make scapegoats of people, we'll just be repeating the orders from year to year and nothing will change. So I think the president should go beyond that to put up drastic policies or even make scapegoats of people to show that he's really sincere and committed to addressing the issue.
But making scapegoats of some of the security officers that have been alleged to be, to also be supporting those, stealing this oil, do you think it's enough, to stop the oil theft in Nigeria?
Well, there has to be a solution. We're not the only country in the world where there are valid tendencies to exploit situations. But if other countries are getting it right, what is the problem with why for people to be put in check? Are we saying people are above the law? Are we saying that policies that work elsewhere and are impracticable here? Goes back to the issue of commitment. Government has to be committed to addressing the issue. I don't think there's any problem that is beyond government to solve, because government has all the right to address those issues by appointing the right people and ensuring that the right situations and circumstances are put in place, machinery are put in place for them to become effective and efficient. Unless we are saying that our own country is different from other countries and certain things are beyond us, then it puts a question mark about our ability to run our own affairs. So I think government, if they are sincere, are able to tackle the issue, and I don't think any security man is above the country or above the federal government.
What do you think about the hike in the price of PMS?
Well, the debate has been on as to what they call appropriate pricing, and we keep hearing the issue of subsidy. Now we hear that it will last until June. Meanwhile, the prices have gone up. In just where I live, we'll be buying PMS for as high as 300, 320. So what is left when if we are talking about subsidy? The question that needs to be answered is, why must we continue to depend on importation? Why is it impossible? For instance, we say we spend billions on subsidy. Why can't we deploy such to building new refineries if necessary, so that we can refine products within Nigeria and bring down the cost? Why are we so dependent on importation? Who are the people benefiting from this importation that it must continue instead of developing our own local? If we say the old refineries are no longer able to function, why not build new ones? What does it cost to build new refineries? Can't the money that we're deploying to subsidy be used to build new refineries? So there's a lot of question mark about the way we go about doing things. And it appears that selfish individual interests appear to be to be uppermost or more important to some people or to people in government than doing something in the interest of the country. So we need to be asking all these questions. Who are those benefiting from this continuous importation that keeps the price up? Because it means that so long as there are victories in the international oil market, we also have to be paying for it. And for a government that is not ready to increase the salaries of workers, to continue to allow inflation to spiral the way it has been doing, it just means that there is less consideration for how people are surviving. Because when you increase the price of PMS, it will increase the price of transportation, movement of goods, and all other things. So it will just continue to put pressure on the livelihood of the people. This should be a cause for concern.
But now there are reports that some people are for a subsidy removal in Nigeria because of how it's affecting the economy. While of course we know if subsidy is removed, of course the price of fuel will definitely go up. So are you in support of them removing the subsidy?
I cannot say yes or no because, like I said, there appears to be other solutions that can be explored. Which which I suggested concerning building local refineries or new refineries to enable us refine products within our country, so that instead of depending on importation. So this is one of the ways to go about it. I don't think that it's a thing that we say there's only one solution. And then when we talk about removal of subsidy, if subsidy has not been removed, and right now we're buying fuel for as much as high as 320, as I said in just, how many people have access to the official price in filling stations? The truth of the matter is that the fuel is not even available in filling stations because there are allegations that the dealers divert it to the black market where people go to buy it for as high as that. So we need to know all the facts before we're able to say whether subsidy is removal of subsidy is the way to go. But unless we know and have all the facts, we will just be guessing because we're not sure that the data being given to us by government is really the truth. We need to know what influences our continuous importation. We need to know why we prefer to continue to import instead of developing our local capacity to refine. Without answering all these questions, we'll just be guessing and we may not be able to get to the root of the matter. But definitely we know that when we talk about removal of the subsidy, it's going to affect the people negatively, people that are already down there. When you remove subsidy again, it's going to tell on them. So unless government is ready to introduce some palliatives that will ensure that the effect of the removal of subsidy is cushioned, so that people will not just continue to wallow in poverty, definitely it's going to worsen the economic situation of a lot of Nigerians. And we need to find a way of balancing the equation.
All right, let's look into the education sector. So the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, has decried the dominance of foreign published materials in the nation's academic institution, regretting that the development has taken its toll on foreign exchange. What's your take on these coming from the Minister of Education?
Yes, I want to commend the government and especially TED Fund for coming in to save the situation, so to say, by sponsoring publications by local academics. That is the way to go. And the more this is done, the more and more publications from indigenous academics will come out. We are quick to compare ourselves with other countries. We talk about the dominance of foreign publications without us all looking at what influences that. In the countries that we're referring to, publications are largely done free of charge. We have publishing houses who publish outputs from academics free of charge, and so people go to buy. So that takes off the problem of the cost of production from the academics. So theirs is just to do the theoretical work, and then the cost of production goes elsewhere. Well, they also have a lot of sponsors who sponsor publications. In Nigeria, where we're already crying that academics are not well paid, the same academics are expected to fund their research, fund the publication of their research and publication of books. So this definitely will not make the output to be anything to write home about. And that explains why there has been a dearth of local publications. Like I said, thank God that TED Fund has stepped in, and I can only say I am aware that TED Fund has also been publishing books, sponsoring books by academics. So the more this is done, it is not the lack of capacity by academics that is making us not to have enough publications. It is just because the right environment has not been provided, such as the sponsorship of sort of publications that has limited the availability of local books. So it is good that this is coming up. I commend the TED Fund and the ministry for encouraging this, and I want to urge that more be done to assist local academics to publish more, because they have the capacity. It's just that the means of publishing is kind of limited because of the poor resources.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this morning. But before we end this, let's quickly look at Mr. and Mrs. And the first person speaking is, of course, we have two friends today. Mrs. is not in the picture. It says, our lives are in hands of our wives. Who told you that? I don't believe such rubbish. Our lives are in the hands of God. And the second Mr. replied, go home and check. God handed it to them since.
Yes, the women are the powerhouse of the home, and everything is in their control.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Dr. Tayo Bateru. Is a journalist, former Air Department of Mass Communication, University of Jos. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and that's all we have for you on Today in the News. Do well to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damlola Okushakin. Have a lovely weekend.